close your eyes and picture a windswept plateau high above the northern Urals, a frozen expanse where the cold eats at your bones, and the sky hangs heavy with shifting clouds. There are no trees, no tracks besides those you leave yourself, and no sounds save the grinding patter of slush and the mournful sigh of the wind. Under that drifting gray sky in February of 1959, a group of 9 young hikers set off for adventure, lured by the allure of untouched snow and uncharted peaks. They were ambitious, meticulously trained, and certain they could conquer any challenge the wilderness offered. But here, at the remote pass now bearing a name that sends shivers down the spine of anyone who has heard it, something went horribly wrong. By the time rescuers descended on that lonely canvas camp, they discovered a scene so perplexing, so chilling, that it defied explanation. What they found would transform a standard mountaineering expedition into the most enduring mystery of the Soviet era. In the glow of their headlamps, they thought themselves masters of the elements. Instead, they would become victims of something they could neither foresee nor understand. They were students and recent graduates from Ural Polytechnic Institute, each driven by the same blend of curiosity and camaraderie that binds explorers together. Anatoly, the seasoned leader, navigated by compass and intuition, while Zenaida, her laughter bright against the gloom, carried a diary chronicling every step. Rustam, the stalwart radio operator, kept morale high with jokes that echoed across the snow. Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko were the pathfinders, their spirits as restless as the wind. Lyudmila, gentle but resolute, mapped the terrain with precision, and Semyon, the photographer, documented their journey in grainy black and white. Georgy and Igor, the youngest, exchanged whispered dreams of conquest beneath star-strewn nights. They trekked with careful discipline, each member trusting the others implicitly. They joked about the legends of the region, about lights dancing on distant peaks, and of shamans who whispered secrets in the blizzard. They braced themselves for cold and hunger, unwilling to admit that a deeper unease had settled into their bones. Their route took them across frozen rivers and through dense forests where snow-laden branches bowed like cathedral arches. Days passed beneath a steel sky, footprints vanishing as soon as they were made, only to reappear beyond the next ridge. They pitched tents in sheltered hollows, boiled thin soup, and pressed on, drawn ever closer to Kholat Syakhl. They followed their maps to the designated pass, confident that modern science could explain any oddity. As they climbed, the temperature plummeted, and the sun shrank to a pale, fleeting disk. They layered wool and fur, strapped crampons to boots, and snapped photographs of their footprints vanishing into the silence. Yet beneath their disciplined exterior, tension grew, for the wind had begun to howl with a voice that seemed almost human, carrying pulses of something unknowable across the whiteness. They shared nervous smiles, attributing the sensation to isolation, unwilling to admit that the unease had settled into their bones. On the night of February 2nd, the storm descended. Blinding snow whipped across the pass, reducing the world to a swirling void. The group radioed base camp with a hurried message. Weather deteriorating, pitching tents early, all well. It was the last time their voices would carry beyond the roar of the blizzard. On the following morning, the storm showed no sign of relenting, but the hikers made a fateful decision. Instead of huddling beneath their winter gear, they ventured uphill in search of a more secure camp. Without warning, a low rumble roared through the air, a sound not of thunder nor avalanche, but of something vast and shifting beneath the ice. Startled, they stumbled back toward the shelter they had erected, but the wind conspired against them, tearing at their clothes and blurring their vision. Fear took root as the howling symphony reached a thunderous crescendo, leaving the men and women of the Dyatlov expedition uncertain whom or what they should truly fear. Their last recorded breath crackled through the radio before silence claimed the airwaves. Back at the institute, the instructors listened in stunned silence as the transmission cut off mid-sentence. But at the pass, something had frightened the hikers so profoundly that they abandoned their tent in darkness and fled into the night. Inside, their gear, food, and even shoes remained behind, as if they had shed them in a desperate act of panic. Investigators later noted that the tent had been sliced open from the inside, its orange canvas ripped by a force no one could explain. Yet the group's footprints, traced by rescue parties through fresh snow, led away from the tent in single file, sandals and socks barely holding warmth against the biting frost. Those steps ended abruptly at a dense stand of tree trunks, where the trail vanished into blinding white. After that, the hikers disappeared, consumed by the storm and by something far more sinister lurking in the darkness. When rescuers finally breached the storm's barrier 5 days later, they found the tent propped open like a grotesque invitation. The flaps fluttered in the wind, revealing a litter of half-melted snow and abandoned supplies. Tracks snaked through the drifts toward the tree line, where investigators discovered the first 2 bodies, partially buried beneath boughs. One, still clutching a branch, seemed to have sought refuge in a pitiful attempt to shield against an unseen threat. The other lay face down, its position suggesting a fall, exhaustion, or both. As snowplows cleared the site, more bodies emerged, some in positions so unnatural they defied basic logic. Layers of clothing, once intended to protect, lay strewn as though discarded. Rescue teams shivered in more ways than weather allowed, piecing together the fragmented remains of their comrades and whispering theories that ranged from the plausible to the preposterous. The landscape offered no answers, only the echo of footsteps frozen in swirling drifts and the memory of voices lost to the howling void. Another search party, venturing further down the slope, found 3 more bodies by a small ravine, huddled together beneath snow-laden branches. Their frozen forms bore faces twisted in terror, eyes half open to an empty sky. The final 2 were discovered 2 months later, buried in a shallow depression, 40 meters from the ravine. Partially dressed, their bodies in intimate embrace, investigation revealed startling contradictions. 2 suffered massive chest fractures no human force could have inflicted, yet bore no external bruises. Others had missing eyes and a tongue inexplicably removed. Radiological tests detected traces of radiation on clothing, as if the campers had brushed against some invisible hazard. Medical examiners ruled the cause of death to be hypothermia, but the combination of internal injuries and freezing pointed to tensions beyond simple exposure. Whispers of military tests, secret government experiments, and restless spirits drifted across the nation, carried by journalists eager to sell a sensational story. But behind every whisper was a question that refused to be silenced. Why would 9 people, so well prepared, meet such a grotesque end? The deeper investigators dug, the darker the tale became. Official reports spoke of a compelling natural force that spurred the hikers to tear their own tent open and flee half-dressed into the polish of night. Yet examinations of the ripped canvas and the torn boots yielded no clear culprit. Some experts proposed a katabatic wind, an invisible wall of ice-cold air racing downhill at lethal speeds. Others argued that the campers, driven by panic, had succumbed to hypothermia-induced delirium, a state that superheated imagination and paralyzed reasoning. Cold War spies speculated about clandestine weapons tests, a Soviet cover-up, wiping out witnesses to an experiment gone awry. Each theory carried its own brand of horror, but none could fully reconcile the inexplicable radiological readings or the physical impossibility of the fractures found in 2 of the bodies. The facts lay scattered like shards of broken glass, reflecting a mystery too jagged to piece together. In the years that followed, the story of the Dyatlov Pass tragedy wove itself into the fabric of global conspiracy lore. Some researchers dusted off the official files, determined to find the one piece of evidence that would unlock the truth. Explorers with thermal drones returned to the plateau, scanning for hidden depressions or signs of unnatural heat. Followers of the paranormal retraced the group's final steps by candlelight, chanting invocations of protection against the unseen. Meanwhile, skeptics published tomes dismantling every fanciful hypothesis. Was it the inescapable power of nature, or a clandestine weapons test, disguised as meteorological research? Anecdotes emerged of a triangle of strange lights witnessed in the sky, of unexplained radio static that jammed military communications, and of footprints leading to nowhere, as if the hikers had vanished rather than perished. Yet all illustrations of the event, photographs, diary entries, fragmentary radio transcripts, offered only fragments of a larger horror. It was a puzzle of such complexity, of such dark elegance, that the answers seemed as elusive as the northern lights dancing on a moonless night. Within Semyon's camera roll lay a silent testimony. Grainy images of the group, illuminated by headlamps, pale faces alight with pride. Then later, blurred snapshots of jagged slopes and swirling wind patterns, as though the storm itself had grasped the film. Zenaida's diary, recovered from the decrepit car they used as a base camp, contained entries of clinical normality until the final pages. There, her handwriting slanted wildly, each sentence growing more fragmented, more urgent. The wind spoke to us. We cannot trust the shadows. Tonight we will camp on the slope, away from trees, safer from falling snow. Anatoly disagrees, but I hear it, its voice carried on the wind. The pen had scratched across the page until the ink smeared, then stopped altogether. Scholars debated whether her last words were a literal warning or the desperate scribblings of a mind fraying in the cold. What can one do with a confession so cryptic, so drenched in dread, that it only deepens the sense of foreboding? Even now, more than 6 decades later, the site remains a magnet for thrill-seekers and mourners alike. Government barricades yield to determined trespassers who want to glimpse the tent clearing, the ravine, the small ring of fevered crouch where the bodies were laid to rest. Some bring flowers, others conduct seances in the frosty gloom, trying to coax answers from the spirits they believe still linger. Documentary filmmakers chase leads across dusty archives, uncovering bureaucratic memos that hint at a hush-hush directive from Moscow. All the while, the mountain holds its breath, as cryptically silent as it was the night those 9 souls were lost to its white embrace. Occasionally, fresh snow obliterates footprints, erasing the faintest trace of human folly or error. Under the sun that retreats so quickly, nothing endures but the unbroken hush of the peak. Modern science has offered another chilling explanation: infrasound. At certain wind speeds, air rushing over the ridges of Kholat Syakul can create low-frequency vibrations that humans cannot consciously detect, yet which wreak havoc on the inner ear and the mind. Imagine a sound so deep it shakes your organs, generating nausea, panic, and the sensation that something monstrous lurks just beyond sight. Researchers replicated the phenomenon in wind tunnels, producing footage of test subjects fleeing en masse from tents they had only minutes earlier deemed safe. Could the Dyatlov group have been besieged by this ghostly roar, causing them to rip open their shelter and scatter into a freezing night? It is plausible, and yet it accounts for neither the unexplained fractures nor the radiation traces. Science can illuminate one corner of the mystery, even as it casts the rest into darker shadow, reminding us that knowledge can be both a lamp and a blade. And so, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains a tapestry of terror, woven from threads of cold logic and warm blood, of rigorous study and whispered myth. Its true cause may lie buried beneath layers of snow, government documents, and human frailty. As long as listeners recount this tale around crackling fires or beneath starless skies, the spirits of those 9 young adventurers will wander the snowdrifts, urging us to remember their journey and to learn the lesson they could not. What danger do we fear more? The one we can name or the one that remains forever hidden beyond the edge of the flame? The winds carry their story still, and if you listen closely, you may yet hear the echo of boots crunching in the mound of fresh snow outside your door. This was the Dyatlov Pass incident.